Hello there. In this video, we're going to be talking about Jordan Belfort versus Grant Cardone, and more specifically, their sales training. Now, I used to work for Jordan Belfort. I used to offer and sell his sales training to people and his other programs as well. And I've also gone through personally Jordan or Grant Cardone's sales training. So I may not be an expert on Grant Cardone, but I definitely and I'm an expert on Jordan Belfort's straight line sales method, as well as being very, very familiar with Grant Cardone's books, his courses, his online programs, and all of that. And also, not just that, but I've had the opportunity in my career to go through plenty of different sales trainings from different jobs, but also be able to use these different methods in my own personal work and different sales jobs. So, of course, I've used Grant Cardone for quite a few years, and I've also had the opportunity to use Jordan Belfort for very, very actively for hours and 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 days, right? So I've had the opportunity to repeat that method many, many, many times. And from that, I've learned quite a few things. And ultimately, the purpose of both of their sales training is the same, to help close a deal. And the methods are very similar, but their way of approaching can be summarized as this. And I'll explain a little bit more about this in a moment. Is Jordan Belfort's program, Straight Line Sales, helps to create very, very dynamic salespeople. Grant Cardone's is very systematic. And by the way, Jordan Belfort has a system too. Grant Cardone, you could be dynamic with Grant Cardone stuff too. But Grant Cardone is more systematic in helping your salespeople to build the beliefs that they need to overcome daily challenges, like objections and just maintaining a good attitude salesperson. So with that said, I mean, both of them have the ideas of you have to build a good attitude, you have to have the right mindset and all of that. Both Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort does that, but Grant Cardone digs quite deep into building a sales mentality, which is very helpful. But Jordan Belfort, once you have the mentality, you could still be an awkward person that says the wrong things at the wrong time, or does these weird things and doesn't really understand the full scope of the sales process. So ultimately, I would say combine them, right? Because they both go very well together. Like, honestly, I don't know why they had that conflict. They would have made an amazing team if Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort had started some business together. Like, I think they would be amazing. Like, Jordan Belfort's dynamic salespeople with Grant Cardone's mindset and system that he helps people to make, it'd be absolutely incredible. But anyways, they're competitors. I hope to possibly see a UFC fight between them someday. And besides that, I'm trying to come to this video unbiased, just based on my experience with both. And here's the thing. I mean, it's really important to also take a look at where these two people developed their sales training. Right? You got Grant Cardone. He started off in car sales, and then he started selling his car sales training to many, many people. That's basically where he started. He started in car sales. So that's where his attitude, greeting, fact-finding, appraisal, selection, demonstration, service walk, test, close, write-up, negotiation, close, delivery, follow. That's where that system came from. And then, or that's where that system started, at least. And I don't know if he took it from someone else, a different sales trainer or something. But then we've got Jordan Belfort. Finance industry. We all know his story. We all saw The Wolf of Wall Street. And all the drugs and the women and the material wildness and the craziness aside, looking at the sales fundamentals, this movie doesn't truly capture the full value of Jordan Belfort's sales process. Yes, we get to see in a movie like the 30-second close. Leonardo DiCaprio picks up the phone, talks to a guy named John, tells him about how great a product is, and then he closes the deal in like a minute and 30 seconds. But here's what if you're actually in sales, you realize all he did was hang up the phone. He didn't collect any details. He didn't collect anything. And then, if you're in real sales, most people understand that, if the customer has not signed on a dotted line and has not received their item, such as a car, they have not taken that home, then it is not a closed deal. There's still money that is on the table, on the line. So just in that consideration, right? Depending on your sale. Yes, it's good to to be able to close that deal and build that interest. But back in the day, Jordan Belfort still had to send out a ticket for the customer to sign to hand their money over. Now that doesn't say anything. That doesn't mean that just because you've gotten the customer's commitment that it's not a closed deal. It just means that these two mentalities, what we missed between these two mentalities, what we missed in the movie is there's an entire process. This is a prospecting. There's a half-hour long pitch. There's the script along with the discovery calls. Like, you don't want to ever sit watching a movie with a salesperson doing intelligence gathering, as Jordan Belfort might call it, or as Grant Cardone might call it, fact finding. You don't want to watch a movie with someone listening to a customer talk about what they want, their goals, how they're doing, right? You don't really want to watch the intelligence gathering aspect of it. You don't want to do the research, listen to a salesperson just listening to the research part of it. And I don't remember if they did that in the movie, but that's a huge part of both of these people's sales trainings. But it is completely eliminated out of the movie, out of the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. So The Wolf of Wall Street is not a prime example that truly captures the value of Jordan Belfort's sales training. I mean, it was so effective, it was too effective that it basically hurt his company, because anybody could basically walk into a company, learn the sales system, start applying it, and they could basically get anyone to do anything. But here's the thing is, at the time, when you really think about it, when it comes to like finance and stuff, the customers had no clue that there was something bad going on. They thought this was just a very successful company. They thought it was just a company that was making a lot of money. And some people were making money, but what happened on the back end, that's where things got shady. That's where things just were out of control. And that's ultimately Jordan Belfort's downfall. Poor management of the ethics of the company and all that. But that aside, sales expert, sales training, another sales expert, great sales training. So how does this apply in a real situation? What is the difference between a dynamic salesperson versus a salesperson who has a great attitude, who has knows the process and is able to plug themselves in? Well, if you're just able to plug yourself into a system, there's a lot of places you can get stuck by not understanding the dynamics of a sales situation. And what I mean by dynamics isn't that every sale is like this complex situation, but as Jordan Belfort and Grant Cardone calls it. I mean, Jordan Belfort, straight line. Grant Cardone, every step of the system: attitude, greeting, fact-finding, appraisal, selection, demonstration, service walk, test close, write-up, negotiation, close, delivery, follow-up. And as you go along that process, you continue along until you finally close the deal. But here's the thing, is sales can be very dynamic. And if you're not prepared, like, you're finally at the demonstration phase or a service walk, or you're at the test close phase, but the customer still wants to look at new cars, look at more houses, think about new ideas, starts looking at all these other products, starts to talk about duck hunting or whatever, for whatever reason, starts to go off into these other conversations, you might say like, oh, well, I read this book about how I should listen to my customer and like engage with them and really try to understand them. So, I'm in the service walk test close now, or the demonstration now. So let me, I want to hear about what they have to say. And that's fine. Like, there may be sales situations where you should listen to the customer's life story. But in most situations, the most valuable thing you could do is understand why those happen. Why, a customer might start to go off and talk about other things and stuff like that. So, and again, there's time for that, right? Maybe you're in a sales cycle that is a longer sales cycle that, requires you to build a relationship. Then at the end of the day, and you got to take them out to lunch, and you don't want to talk business during lunch, and you just need to have a conversation with them. Well, neither of these really teach you hey, how to, where that comes into the process. But where you have the dynamic salesperson is understanding the buyer behavior here, the buyer decision. Whereas Grant Cardone, you take people through a process. Great for car sales, great for things where you have to demonstrate things, great for things where you have to show stuff. But having a dynamic salesperson, especially if you're an individual looking to become better at sales, understanding buyer behavior, what areas you have to hit, what like key triggers that get people to buy things, where, you know, if a customer is objecting, like what makes that the reason, and how you can fix, or not fix, but how you can handle or discuss that situation. So it's been a lot of like talk about dynamics and, you know, fitting into a process and system. So let me share an example. You know, I used to work in car sales. Attitude, greeting, fact finding, appraisal, selection, demonstration, service walks, test close, write up, negotiation, close, delivery, follow. It's the same thing every single time. Jordan Belfort, straight line sales, same thing every single time. Now, great for both of them are great for phone sales. Both of them are great to help you be more dynamic in a situation where you don't have scripts either. Both of them suggest scripts depending on your situation. But, you know, and both of them say like, hey, you should be prepared with this type of way to handle something. Grant Cardone's got his closer survival guide. Jordan Belfort has his, you know, have these answers ready. So with that said, I mean, they both go together very well. Like I personally, again, like back to this idea, like I wish they had a better conversation over their podcast. If you ever saw it, they had a podcast where, you know, they both basically get into a conflict, they get upset at each other, and seriously, they could have started an amazing business together, I think, but amazing sales empire. But with that said, you know, bringing those two ideas together, amazing sales programs, both of them, I think they go like one needs the other and one goes well with the other. But with that said, they're two men who, you know, have their egos and, you know, who knows, maybe they'll fight on the UFC. I don't know. But thinking about these in a real situation, you know, I used to work in car sales. You follow that system. They were even very clear to me, like, hey, listen, we're using Grant Cardone's system. So, and by the way, they didn't tell me attitude, greeting, fact finding, appraisal, selection, demonstration. I already knew that. Like as soon as I heard Grant Cardone, I'd already gone through a sales training. I was like, oh, this is easy then. I'll just follow the system. Have a good attitude. You know, greet the customer, do the fact finding, learn about what they're looking for, their specific needs. And then, you know, you start to appraise, look at the different options, try to look at the price and what they could possibly want. And then, you know, you go through the rest of the process. And then help them find the right item. And then with Jordan Belfort, you know, of course, you don't necessarily have those steps, but fitting into that dynamicness, right? Where you're actually finally going into the sales process, the pitch, the discussion, the conversation, the closing conversation, the you know, the entire conversation from beginning to end. Like, what do you do if something else comes up? Now, Grant Cardone's can be pretty tough because, of course, he has the closer survival guide and he helps you build a mentality and you start to build the attitude and the right mindset to do these things. But on the other side, just having them on lock isn't always helpful because if you don't understand what the customer is truly saying. You know, when the customer says, I don't have enough time or I need more time to think about it, it isn't just, you know, okay, well, Mr. Customer, I understand that, you know, time is precious. You've got a lot of time. You value your time, and, you know, I truly value your time too. And taking a couple extra days to solve this or to purchase this item might not truly give you the thing that you want. So we can offer you an opportunity. And by the way, in car sales, I think you're allowed to sign a thing that you're allowed to pay for an option to, you know, bring a car back. But if there's like some issues with it, but most car sales are final. But with that said, you know, you say what you need to say and you make that offer, and you could say like, oh, well, or you could talk about demo products, right? If you sell software, things like that. Well, you know, time is valuable, time is money, and I know you know that. So, you know, let's make something happen. Let's give you a free demo so that there's nothing that you have to worry about. Our team will take completely good care of you and all that. But you could say that, you could regurgitate something. I'm just making these up on the spot. But with that said, if you have Jordan Belfort's sales training, you truly understand that, you know, what is the reason? The reason isn't time. It's not a time thing. They don't want to come back another day. They don't want to come back another day for another hour-long conversation most of the time. They don't want to, you know, they don't truly need to. There might be some real obstacles, right? Like they have to talk to their wife. They have to because it's a big sale, big decision. They have business partners. But at the end of the day, if you've done the steps properly, if you understand the sales process, you understand that the certainty The thing isn't time, it's certainty, right? It's certainty on you, your product, or your company. That is it, certainty. They're comparing other products. So in car sales, where that applies, where I've applied that, is knowing your customer, knowing your product in and out, knowing your competitors, being able to tell exactly what the competitor is going to do. For example, I was offering cars, and the customer wanted to go to a different dealership, and they were looking at all the prices, and they even saw that the prices at the other dealership were potentially less. But I was able to explain to them the exact process, the potential issues with the car, and why it was priced that way, and why our offer is basically going to be the same as the other one, but they're already here. So obviously I couldn't convince them enough. I wasn't as good of a salesperson or persuader enough, because they went to the other dealership, but then they eventually came back because I literally told them exactly what was going to happen. They were going to spend time there. They were going to go through the exact same process. They were going to have the exact same thing happen to them over there. And then they came back because I knew exactly what I was talking about, what the other dealership was going to do, and ultimately closed that deal. Now, that was not because I knew of the system of Grant Cardone's system. Of course, I was plugged into that system, but I was able to be more dynamic and understanding, okay, what are they not certain about? They're not certain about me and what I know about the car business. They weren't certain about me or what I knew about my company or its competitors. They weren't certain about maybe the car, because they had these other options. They saw all these other cars, and they were like, oh, well, there's so many options. Maybe I can get a better deal on this. So ultimately, it comes down to that dynamicness and understanding that customer relationship. And there was another situation so that Grant Cardone doesn't always teach, but if you learn in the Jordan Belfort straight line system, it applies tremendously. And this was when I was in car sales as well. Like most of my examples for these, because I've had the most time to apply them, is from car sales. Now, reflecting on the past sales situations that I have, I could definitely see where these things came in. But just in consideration of car sales, right? We've got this entire car sales situation that I was in. And you might think attitude, greeting, fact-finding, appraisal, selection, demonstration, service walks, test loads, write-up, negotiation, close, delivery, follow-up. So after your demo, then you're going through test closes and write-up, negotiation, and all that. And then when you reach that process, you think, okay, well, steps, right? I was thinking, okay, well, let me just go to the next step. Let me just go to the next step, right? Let me try to test close this. But how do you handle that? We can come up with all sorts of ways to test close something, like, oh, well, what would you like to have your software texted to you, or would you like to have it via email or whatever, or would you like to download it from a link, or how many team members would you like to sign up for this, or would you like your car, would you like the blue car or the red car? That's probably a terrible question to ask by that time, because you probably want your customer already nailed down a car by that time, and then it's time to go, right? But with that said, red car, okay, so red car, what do you do next, right, in a test close? So the customer's already decided on a car, the customer's already decided on a software. What do you do during a test close? You should have a system already prepared. You should already know exactly what to do, and that is something that you can learn from Jordan Belfort's system. So he calls what he calls looping and not front loading. And what I mean by front loading is giving every single detail up at the front of your pitch, up at the front of your delivery. So you have to save something, just that extra benefit, to reestablish certainty, right? Because the only reason a customer might be objecting when you're about to test close or trial close or whatever is because they don't have certainty in your product. They're missing an idea or something that you might have said that was not shared with, that they did not catch. Because think about it, you've probably been watching this video for 19 minutes or less, most likely less, or you might have skipped ahead, and you've got this entire system and you've got so much thrown at you. You probably forgot 18 minutes of what I said. You remember maybe 5 or 6, maybe 10 details of anything that I've said so far. So think about that in a sales situation. When you're with a customer, when you're sharing a car, they've got so many things going on in their mind. what they're going to pay with, what their spouse is going to say, what their kids going to like it, whether they're getting the best deal, their money, where if there's another dealership, if there's another car that they might like more, and then all this while you're trying to tell them stuff, while you're telling them ideas and information. Barely any of that is going to stick. So when you finally have an opportunity to really share your information, when you're finally sitting down with that customer, then you take the opportunity to reestablish all of these things, relist all of these ideas, these functions, the features, the benefits, the advantages. You start to relist all those things, and Jordan Belfort calls those benefits, advantages, and or Grant Cardone calls it benefits, advantages, and features. That's not anything new, but in his sales training, he uses those specific terms. I'm just sharing that with you. So with that said, I mean, you have this amazing opportunity, or I had an amazing opportunity. I'd gone through the car sale. We've done all the exercise of, going through the demonstration, going through, the test close and everything, and they still weren't certain. They still, had these doubts. And then all I needed to do was take in some of this idea from Jordan Belfort here, this idea of reestablishing on paper, physically on paper, to show people, to show the customer what it was that they were getting. And, while that may not be the exact reason compared with everything else, it might have been the entire process, but it closed the deal. It ended up building the certainty. They could see on paper. Maybe they're a visual learner, knowing this type of stuff. Maybe they're a visual experiencer. Maybe they're a feeling person. Maybe they need to smell the car. Maybe they need to something about the smell of the car that gets them. Maybe it's something about the visual or what they see or read on a pamphlet, a paper. So something like that. Knowing these types of things, you get a lot from Jordan Belfort in helping to close all of these different areas, knowing the customer dynamics, that if you have a customer that you're talking to and they're a reader and you're just talking to them, like myself as I'm doing right now, then you might be missing this entire concept that all they need is just a nice little pamphlet that shows them exactly what they're getting, that shows them the extra benefits that maybe you haven't mentioned yet because you're not front loading, and then they're getting all that. And there's so many more examples that I could potentially share, but at the end of the day, you've got an amazing program in the Jordan Belfort program, and you've got an amazing program through Grant Cardone as well. If you're like a manager and you want to build a system, you got a ton of high turnover and you want to build salespeople starting with just a good mindset, but they may not have the dynamicness, they might still be kind of awkward, then this will help make them have a champion mentality. And Jordan Belfort, does a lot of motivation and, success skills as well. And, he does the mentality training, but it also helps to create a more dynamic salesperson because they truly have an understanding of the sales process, customers, and ultimately the dynamics of whether or not, the reasons behind why customers may or may not buy. And through that understanding, he's got a system, the straight line system, and you do intelligence gathering, you do the straight line, and then how to handle the first objection, the second objection, the third objection, and how to handle all these different situations. So it's absolutely amazing if you got like a company that just needs people that are going to be killers on the phone, killers in sales in general, because they know reasons why people may or may not buy, and be able to handle those in a very professional and knowledgeable, expert way. So that is this video on the Grant Cardone versus Jordan Belfort versus Grant Cardone, the Wolf of Wall Street versus the Grant Cardone sales training. And I hope this was helpful. And with that, be sure to check out their books. If you're still watching this video, be sure to check out their books on sales training. The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort, or you've got a Closer Survival Guide, or basically any of Grant Cardone's other books are very good at helping you get the attitude, the skills, the ideas that you need to be able to close more deals, make more money, and just become better at sales. So with that, thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great day.